In this video, we will explore the behavioral component of District 12's multi-tiered System of Support, or MTSS, process. First, let's take a look at the general MTSS process, defining what MTSS is and the general events that occur during this process. As previously mentioned, MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Support. It is a system designed to intervene if a student shows any signs of behavioral or learning needs. The system then puts in place specific supports designed to help the student achieve grade level or age level academic or behavioral goals. The MTSS system contains different levels or tiers of supports depending on the nature of the student need that is identified. This diagram shows three tiers on the right and left sides. The first tier, Tier 1, indicates supports provided by teachers in the regular education classroom to help address academic or behavioral issues. Tier 2 involves supports that require small group setting outside of the classroom due to the more targeted types of supports being used. Tier 3 supports also occur outside of the classroom, but typically occur one-on-one between a teacher and a student. Notice that the left-hand tiers are to help students be successful in Tier 1, while the right-hand tiers are to support students who are already successful in Tier 1. This video will only address the tiers on the left-hand side. Any MTSS system that is trying to support student success in Tier 1 has these goals: to identify and support students early before long-term issues arise, develop and plan specific supports and interventions targeted to specific student needs, evaluate how well supports or interventions are working to help students be successful, and have all students positively respond to supports and interventions so that they are successful in Tier 1. To achieve those goals, an MTSS system uses the following overall process: a universal screening of students, which means an assessment, either academic or behavioral, is administered to all students for whom the assessment is considered appropriate. Then, building student assistance teams, or SATs, which can consist of teachers, administrators, social workers, and/or psychologists, analyze the data and determine which students are in need of Tier 1, 2, or 3 supports based on the entrance criteria located in the MTSS handbook. The SAT then decides which supports are appropriate for each student based on their needs, and then implements those supports or interventions. They then monitor student progress while the supports are in place, stopping the supports if students meet the exit criteria as outlined in the MTSS handbook. This graphic represents the MTSS process for students needing additional support for success in Tier 1. Please note the use of a universal screener to determine what level of supports students may need, if any, for either academic or behavioral concerns. This slide shows the similarities in the academic and behavioral MTSS processes. While the focus and nature of the supports is different between the two, with academic MTSS supporting student success in reading and math, and behavioral MTSS focused on student success in social and emotional development, the processes used to identify and promote student success is the same. The overarching goal of the MTSS process is to be proactive and specifically help students reach their age or grade level targets before larger issues develop. The reason both academic and behavioral components are included in the MTSS system is because student success is not only related to academic achievement, but is also related to social and emotional success. Now that we have discussed what MTSS is and its purpose, we will take a closer look at the behavioral component of the District 12 MTSS system. Let's start with the universal screener. The universal screener used in the behavioral MTSS process is called the SABER screener, which stands for Social, Academic, and Emotional Behavior Screener. It helps identify students that may need support in 3 areas: socially, academically, or emotionally. The point of this screener is not to diagnose a student with a specific social or emotional issue. Instead, it indicates there may be an issue and that further investigation, whether that be another assessment, a conversation with the student, or talking to the student's teachers, is needed to see if there actually is an underlying issue. The SABRE screener works in much the same way as the Ames Web reading probes do. When a student takes an Ames Web probe and it is discovered that they are reading at a slower rate than their grade level indicates, the Ames Web probe only tells us that there may be an issue with reading skills. It doesn't tell us what the issue is. Only after further assessment and investigation can we determine what the specific reading issue is, if any. The student may be comprehending well, but just be a naturally slow reader. Or there may be a reading deficit that needs to be addressed. The SABRE screener does the same thing as the Ames Web probe does. Indicate that a problem may exist, but more investigation and information is needed to determine if there is an underlying issue. In order to identify students that may be exhibiting a social or emotional need, teachers fill out the SABRE screener. This is done twice a year to see student growth, similar to how MAP growth testing is done multiple times a year. The SABRE screener asks teachers to indicate how often they have seen specific and easily observable behaviors in each student during the previous month. These behaviors were chosen for the screener because research has shown they are highly relevant to social and academic success at early childhood, school-aged, and adolescent stages of development. It should be emphasized that students do not fill out the SABRE screener. Teachers do. From this point forward, copies of the results will be made available to parents and guardians after the fall and spring screening. Here we see part of the SABRE screener. Teachers rate the frequency of these listed behaviors on the 0 through 3 scale pictured on this slide. For social behavior, teachers rate students on the behaviors listed here. Please note this list includes both positive and negative behaviors. For academic behavior, teachers rate students on how often they have seen these academic behaviors in the previous month. Again, please note the inclusion of both positive and negative behaviors. And finally, teachers rate students on how often they have seen this list of positive and negative emotional behaviors in their students within the past month. Each behavior listed on the screener is scored according to the teacher rating for that behavior. If a behavior is negative, for example, sadness, and is observed often or almost always according to the rating scale, the student receives a lower score. The opposite is true for positive behaviors, such as positive attitude. If a student receives an often or almost always for a positive behavior, the higher the score for the student. The maximum score a student can receive for any behavior is 3. After each individual behavior is scored, scores for each area are calculated. Then all area scores are totaled to give a student an overall score. The chart shown on this slide is then used to determine if a student is at risk in each area and at risk overall using the cut scores provided. If a student's score in a social behavior indicates a student is at risk, this means that the student displays behaviors that limit his or her ability to maintain age-appropriate relationships with peers and adults. If a student is considered at risk for academic behavior, this means the student displays behaviors that limit his or her ability to be prepared for, participate in, and benefit from academic instruction. If a student is found to be at risk for emotional behavior according to the screener, that indicates the student displays actions that limit his or her ability to regulate internal states, adapt to change, and respond to stressful or challenging events. For behavioral MTSS supports, only the social and emotional behavior scores are analyzed for further investigation. If a student is identified by the student assistance team at their building as needing supports, then students could receive any of these listed supports. What supports a student receives and how long these supports last is determined by the building student assistance team and the nature of the issue identified. Parents will be contacted regarding any supports determined to be needed. If you have any questions, please contact the people listed on this slide. You can access their contact information by going to the District 12 website at www.johnsburg12.org and clicking on the word Staff at the top of the page.